All right, welcome back to Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I am your host, Eric Thomas. Today, we're going to be talking about what it takes to deliver a continuous construction portfolio of construction projects inside one of the most operationally complex environments you can imagine, a stadium that's constantly in use and evolving. So we are sitting in Gillette Stadium right now, and I'm joined by Woody Benisek-Beal, the Director of Construction from the Kraft Group. His team supports everything from development and renovations to capital improvements, sometimes acting like a general contractor, sometimes acting like an owner's rep, all while keeping the venue functional for fans, staff, and events. So today's conversation is going to be a lot about people and the process and the decision-making and where technology actually helps things get done. We're in town today because Autodesk Construction Executive Council is actually happening here at Gillette Stadium, which is incredibly exciting. And if you are watching on video, you probably have figured this out already. But if you're an audio listener, we are at Gillette Stadium right now, and the view to my immediate right is incredible. So, Woody, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be here with you. First time I've ever done anything really like this, so pretty excited about it.
Yeah, and your team is just doing some really interesting work. And so I'd love to jump in and learn a bit more about what's unique about operating facilities like Gillette Stadium as a live, always-on asset, and what do people tend to underestimate about building in an environment like this?
I mean, it certainly keeps you on your toes. Wearing the sort of construction manager hat, you'd love to come into a situation, regardless of what the project is, and be able to kind of slap up a couple of fences, maybe a couple of walls, and just go to work and not bother anyone. And that is basically literally impossible here because, like we've proven today, there are things going on in the stadium all the time. It's not just about football games, soccer games, and concerts. It's functions, it's birthday parties, it's corporate events. There are things happening all the time. So it's a unique environment, to say the least. You've really got to be on your A game in terms of communicating and having a lot of different people involved in all of our processes. So it makes you think before you act, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. And even just us being here for me, at least, for just this one day, like there was some guys over here painting earlier, like the sprinklers were running for a while, which looked very cool, I might add. And I think there's some guys out on the field right now, actually. So just the ever-presence of stuff. It's a chaotic but very exciting environment, to say the least. You've mentioned before your team acts both like a GC or an owner's rep, depending on the work in front of you. What determines what mode that you're in that kind of sends you in that direction?
Yeah, I wish I had a more interesting answer than just sort of time and workload. You know, our group is a pretty lean operating unit or business unit, whatever phrase you want to use. There are not many of us. And so as it relates to new projects coming on and being handed our way, if we've got the bandwidth to manage it internally, we will. Often so many things are happening at once in that same theme of you talking about how busy and active this place is. If there's so many things going on at once and we know enough to not try to take on too much, and we'll maybe defer to a general contractor. As it relates to some of the larger scale projects too, there is a sort of a limit where a project might take our entire staff 2 years to complete, and we can't just give up that bandwidth to one thing. So there might be a reason, pending, again, our current workload, where a larger scale project might get pushed to the other general contractor perspective.
Can you tell me about the makeup of your team? I'd be curious how many folks, report to you and help manage a facility and, just the needs at a scale like this.
It's an interesting group, really. Folks have come from pure construction management backgrounds. Our two department heads are former Turner construction people, but I came from civil engineering. The first 4+ years of my career, I was a design engineer working for a civil engineering company. It's as a side note, that's how I got here. And so I was out in a construction trailer while the stadium was being built. But our group, there's folks who have come from a planning background, folks who have come from food and beverage and operations backgrounds. It's a nice mix of people. There's only 14 of us right now. And so we've had our ebbs and flows in terms of size based on workload. Sometimes we've had more, sometimes we've had a little bit less, but it's a bunch of like-minded people who really care about getting stuff done. And I think that's what makes it all work for us. No one really has the same role project over project, it seems. We could have times where all hands on deck and everybody is cleaning up a space at the last minute. And it doesn't matter if you're a vice president or if you're an entry-level construction manager. Everyone's a part of it. And so we wear a lot of hats. As you say, the makeup of the group. One day I could be looking up an old underground utility drawing and sharing it with our facilities people just to make sure that they don't go dig in a place that's going to damage something. And another day we could be sitting with our ownership group, making strategic decisions and having discussions about large scale future projects. Often that is happening within the same day. So we have a wide variety of work, a wide variety of workloads, a wide variety of management styles, and it's great.
It sounds like there's a lot of cool opportunity to work on unique projects every day, which is always fun because you're not doing the exact same thing over and over and over again. I'd like to click down into your role specifically. Yeah. Can you tell me, what's a day in the life like, especially with so many hats that you might wear? Is there a typical day, or does it vary dramatically constantly?
It varies, I guess, year over year, there might be variations. And the reason I say it that way is, let's say, as an example, the last couple of years, I've been focusing a lot of my time on a dedicated training facility for the Patriots. And so that project alone had, 8 standing weekly meetings that get spread out over 3 or 4 days. And so a lot of time sitting in meetings, a lot of time walking job sites. But again, a typical day might be checking on status of a project. There may be a renovation going on inside of the stadium or outside on the site. We've got almost 800 acres of land that are owned by the Krafts in and around the stadium. And so there could be something going on outside. Sitting in a meeting to get a project update, sitting in another meeting to go through budget reviews, kind of you name it, it happens.
And I'd be interested to understand more about the stakeholders that you have as well in managing their expectations simultaneously. I mean, this venue is used, as you mentioned earlier, for obviously football, but it's also there's soccer that happens here, there's concerts that happen here, different events. How do you manage the expectations of so many different groups, and then also the fans and the patrons that are here enjoying the space as well?
With a lot of help, a lot of people, a lot of communication. The place is active all the time. So we force ourselves to communicate. And I keep going back to this about meetings, but we kind of force ourselves to communicate by creating, regular recurring sit downs with stakeholders, with event managers and facilities people, operations department, and our group, amongst others, security personnel, kind of the variety of people from different backgrounds who would be looking at events here with a different sort of lens. And we just sit down on a regular basis and force ourselves to go through a list of just what's going on and who needs what from someone. And do they know we're coming in here to rip a wall down? Does security know that? Because we're going to have to take a security camera off the wall, or a silly little example, but it takes that kind of regular recurring communication by a lot of different people, because there's no way that it really could be one person managing all of this at the same time.
It's going to be interesting talking to you about technology here in a couple minutes as well, because I suspect that plays a big role in being able to navigate all of this. But before we go down that rabbit hole, since I am a tech nerd and we'll be there for 10 hours, if we don't hold on a minute, I'd be interested to learn more about how big high visibility ideas kind of show up in your planning. I mean, there's a stadium to my right. This isn't a typical construction project.
Yeah.
How do you go from the blank slate of we want to build something to really following through into something that has such scale and immense size, I guess, is something like a stadium?
We have a pretty unique role, being an in-house construction manager, general contractor, owner's rep, a bit of an operator in some regards, but if not physically an operator, having a really strong relationship with the operators who run this building throughout all the different events that go on. So as it relates to project ideas and how something grows from just an idea to something special, we like to think we do our best to sort of be the central guiding light, if you will, from the initial idea. We can give feedback about how long something like that might take, how long a project like that might take, how much something like that might cost. We get feedback from stakeholders who are going to operate it, because it does no one any good if we design something in a silo and then just sort of hand it over to someone to operate it and realize that it won't function the way it was designed to. So the best way I can do this is to give kind of a real world example of this North End Zone expansion that's kind of behind you, and it's not very visible just because it's so big. It was a project that came to our table 4 years ago now. And the idea was, let's make a bigger lighthouse structure. It's kind of an architectural feature within the original stadium design. It was notable. You could tell what it was. Maybe some people didn't know exactly what it was because it wasn't really that clear cut the way it was built. and the video board was small. So the project came to us, how do we make a bigger video board and a larger, more, impactful lighthouse? And through the processes of figuring out how to build that, a bunch of people weighed in and said, geez, why don't we finish the space? We're building all this structure to basically bridge, what was otherwise a completely wide open end of the north end of the stadium. We're going to build all this structure to carry this big, beautiful video board, and that's awesome. We're going to build a bunch of structure for this cool lighthouse structure, and we're going to make that so you can actually go inside of it. Now, that's great, but why not create something else? And before you know it, our events staff and facility staff and different food and beverage operators were weighing in on things that they would love to do to improve on the building in general, and things that they would do if they had more space, more function space or otherwise. And by the time all those discussions ended, we had really similar or simple little things that we had solved about this stadium, like making a continuous concourse on the 300 level that loops all the way around the building. We didn't have that for 22 years or whatever. As a silly sidebar, if you were making keg deliveries on one end, one side of the building, and you needed to get to the other side of the building and you were on one northeast corner, to go to the west side, you were driving back all the way around the stadium just to get to the place that was, right across the way from you. And
I'm sure the vendors hated that.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
And it's such a simple little thing, but they lived through it for a long time. But this project, again, that started with the idea to build a new video board in a cool lighthouse, turned into this extremely functional space, in addition to a beautiful club space, in addition to these interior corridors that allow staff to move back and forth between the building on an event day without having to go outside and walk all over the place. It's all these other things came from it, from having access to operators who are our colleagues who are right down the hall, to sit and chat with them and get feedback about what they would do. And it grew into this really amazing, beautiful project.
I appreciate that. And it just really comes back to the communication portion of what we were talking about earlier. Like, you don't come up with those improvements in a silo, and you might not have even been aware that some of these challenges were present until you actually went out and sat down and made folks, aware. You wanted to hear. You wanted to know, how do we make your lives better? How do we improve this?
Yeah.
Is there anything on the more fan-facing side that you could share as far as an improvement where the challenge might not have been the build, but the timing and the coexistence with operations especially?
Yeah, I'll talk about a couple projects, but that one in particular was so in your face from a fan perspective, in that we had to remove access to the main entry, but relocate the main access point at the north end of the stadium. Our entry gates were impacted.
No big deal.
Our entry plaza was we were rerouting people around, literally a massive crane excavation going on, things that were just not normal for fans to be walking around.
Yeah, and it's not like it's 100 people walking around.
Right, and you're talking about concerts where people are literally needing to walk under, this bridge structure and out onto the field to get to their floor seats, and we were ripping all of it apart. So this project was a great example of how we had to navigate and thread the needle, almost literally in some cases, where we were impacting concession spaces and restrooms and concourses. It was quite the feat to continue to make the fans feel like they could come to a game and get access to the concessions and the restrooms and the concourses the same way. Meanwhile, we've got a lot of different things going on behind these fence lines that we had set up.
Yeah, and I'm sure the fan experience is incredibly important through all of this as well. I mean, I think we've all been at event spaces where you get lost or confused as to where you're going and all this stuff, and the intent that your team has had in making sure you're not disrupting both the operations of the facility itself, but the way people feel when they're experiencing and walking around in the space. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Absolutely true. From a construction perspective, how wonderful it would be to just sort of slap up 4 walls and create a big box around our job site and just go to work, show up, open the gate, come in, go to work, leave, close the gate behind you, and you're good to go. It just physically wasn't possible, where we were touching fans on multiple levels of the seating bowl, fans who are in normal, seating bowl seats, fans who are in premium spaces. Everybody was impacted. And so just took a lot of coordination. And again, just so many people who have the same inspiration and motivation to get things done well and keep the fans' experience as a priority. It took so many to pull it off.
Well, it sounds like your communication approach is pretty locked in as far as iterating on the facility and finding opportunities to improve. I'd be curious to hear, where do you see breakdowns between design intent and field execution happen when they do happen? And what are the usual root causes behind that?
It's the same sort of theme here about communication, because it's so easy to get caught up in the moment. Weeks go by, it seems like, because everyone's putting out fires and we're all kind of overworked and there's being pulled in different directions. And so it is, to this day, it's something I still have to kind of keep working on. I have to keep working on, is communicating. So a lot of it is forced. We're forcing ourselves to meet in these regular occurrences to get information shared between people. But in terms of your question here about the sort of the struggle of getting between design and build and the big challenges, having assurance that people really understand what we're all looking at. People who have been in the business for a long time have stared at plans and looked at 3D models and reviewed CAD drawings or whatever the case may be. They can see it, they can touch it, they can feel it virtually, right? They get it. Like, they can look at a dimension and know that 4 feet is this wide and 15 feet's that long and whatever. But having an operator understand that, like, 4 feet between a railing and the first seat in a row in a seating bowl means a different thing to a lot of different people. 4 feet feels different to a lot of different people. So the biggest challenge is getting people to really understand what we're drawing, what's being drawn, what's being modeled, what's going to be built. Because there have been plenty of times where we've moved into a space and adjustments have had to been made. We operate a handful of events and we tweak it, and that's not the way we like to do things. We really want to get it right the first time. And it's part of the tie-in here about talking about technology today is really real for us. Getting all of our designs and concepts and ultimately even the coordinated construction drawings in a sort of model format, or not, a true model format, is so critical. It's just so critical because people are very visual. People who are the most technical can be really visual still. Yeah. People who aren't technical get a lot more out of this process, and we're able to show them what they're going to see when they move into the space, as opposed to just sort of telling them or describing, on a two-dimensional plan.
Yeah.
That is the biggest challenge I see even today. And we've done this for a long time with a lot of different people who have operated this building in different ways. And it kind of continues to be the biggest sort of speed bump about making sure we get it really right and perfect, the first time.
What you're saying about visualization really resonates with me. So I think I've shared this on Digital Builder before. I have aphantasia, which is, I don't have a mind's eye. And so I found this out in college, that when you tell somebody, imagine a picture of a tree or something in your mind, some people have an incredibly vivid picture where they can recall that down to the leaf in their mind. And some people don't have anything at all. I fall into the side of the spectrum where I think more in information terms versus the visualization. And so when you say 4 feet to you might mean something very different to me, that really holds true. And I actually started my college career partly in engineering, and spatial visualization, I couldn't do it. I couldn't flip things around on the 3D graphs and everything because my brain just doesn't work that way. And so I think just making sure we're communicating intentions very clearly is incredibly important, because you don't necessarily know what the person you're telling or writing to or explaining something to, how they're interpreting that. Right. And so there's a lot of work, I think, that goes into ensuring that everybody's kind of locked up, I guess, in the same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
It kind of leads into my next question. I'm interested in understanding your tech stack here to manage and navigate a facility like this. Like it has to be. I would assume that it has to be pretty interesting. What do you guys use to stay on the same page and just better navigate all the different little projects you guys are, not little, but different projects, large and small, that you guys are running?
Yeah, and some of them are little, some are big, and a lot in between. And, I wish I could tell you that we're full-fledged software-driven, driving, issues tracking and drawing management, and we aren't completely there internally, but we leverage a lot of what our design teams are using, things like ACC to manage, the design process, and allows for us to peer behind the curtain and see what's happening in the design phase. And the same thing is true, with our partners when we're using general contractors, knowing that they're using modeling software to do, utility clash detection with the subcontractors, and giving us the ability to sort of be along for the ride, manage the process and construction to make sure things are built right. But as it relates to how we're operating, we're doing a little bit of crawling before we walk, admittedly, but we're in the build and now Forma environment to have projects live there and allow for good visibility to plan updates. And we're thankfully getting into the sort of GC side of things with RFIs and shop drawings and trying to get using that tool to manage it, because frankly, we're a little behind as it relates to tech, to be honest, as it relates to the technology of things these days. And we're still using spreadsheets for budgets, and we're using, Microsoft Project for schedules, and all that's fine, but it's not always that efficient. And we're constantly fighting the fight. I gave an example earlier. I was chatting with some other people about just accessing information. And that can be true across a lot of different business business types. But in our case, it's usually about drawings and plans and information that's related to work someone else is going to look to do. And I give an example of an underground drawing that ironically, it was a utility drawing I did as a civil engineer 22 years ago, believe it or not.
Everything comes back,
It's
right?
crazy. And it's something I did myself. And it was something I'd done that was a response to, an RFI, a question from a contractor about utility coordination at the sort of the main hub of all utilities that enter the stadium on the far end of the building from here. A question came to me from one of our facilities folks who are working with FIFA people who are managing some power systems, generation backup power systems as it relates to being prepared for the World Cup. And they were going to start setting grounding rods in a handful of places that were from the surface beautifully positioned because they're right next to our electrical equipment for the stadium. And so this backup service is going to be adjacent to it. Generators, et cetera, are going to be adjacent to it. And I was asked about, let's clarify. It was good that people were asking my questions, by the way. Let's clarify what's underground there. What kind of data do you have? And we have good information in ACC now. If that question was asked to me 3 years ago, I would have searched through project subfolders.
Yeah.
I maybe would have had to QA, QC it myself to make sure the sketch was drawn. I remember doing it forever ago. Was it saved that way? Has it been updated in the right project folder? Am I looking at the right version of this thing? It would have taken time to sift through old information. And it was information that I knew was there. I knew I could talk someone through finding it. But as I say, in my theoretical, 3 year ago example, that might have taken half a day. To be dramatic. And now the information was at our fingertips. Being managed in that ACC environment means that our stuff is pretty well organized. We're getting there. We're not perfect yet, but it's pretty well organized. And it just means that it's stuff that I can either point someone to and say, you can go look it up yourself, or if I get asked, I can find it quickly. That's the place, bringing this back to your question about the technology that we're using. For nothing else, the ACC setup and allowing us to manage projects that way is really, truly life-changing for how we're working. And we're really just getting started, and we're getting people more used to operating in that environment every day. And you see the benefits all the time.
The platform conversation keeps coming up more and more for me. And I've said before, I'm not a product guy. I'm more of an industry guy. And just the centralization of information is so incredibly important. And I've lived that life of, digging in random nested folder systems, 10 layers deep. And then you open up that final folder and you go _final final V2 _final, really final, not kidding, and you look at it and you go, what the heck happened?
Yep.
But there was another aspect of what you shared where you're talking about some legacy knowledge too. So you've been here for a while, and I, at one point, have modeled this aspect of the utilities. Yeah. If you didn't work here anymore and somebody else has asked that question, they might not have any idea. And so the ability to centralize information in a way that creates that historical record, I think, is incredibly important. And then you get to start, once you've got your central platform you've chosen, then you get to start building on it. What other tools do we want to use? How do they integrate with each other? How do we move data from platform to platform? And I appreciate your candor as far as where you are in your tech journey, but I think you're really well positioned to start making choices now. You go, well, what else do we want? What other information are we seeking? And what tools are available to do that? And I'm curious, has your team explored anything tied to creating digital twins for the facilities that you manage?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've had a focus on a digital twin for a bit now, and it's really coming along, which is exciting. We started with truly, again, 22, 23-year-old data, 2D CAD, drawing sheets, PDFs, piecing that together with a three-dimensional CAD model that got updated, maybe 18 years ago, and then piecing that together with dozens and dozens, heck, probably more than hundreds at this point of improvement projects specifically to the stadium now, where slowly but surely we were working in Revit from a design perspective. Now we're only working in Revit from a design perspective, and having the digital twin as a tool to allow us to access the information immediately is huge. it's also forcing us to really double check what we've got.
Oh, yeah.
It's forcing us to see that the floor plans are correct, and we're noting things that aren't correct that may have been just sort of sitting in the background because maybe someone accessed the information for one task or one problem solving session or whatever. But having the digital twin be this truly nearly completely developed product means we're really paying attention to the details even more than we ever were. So we're in a good place where we've got a living, breathing digital twin for the stadium. We know there are a handful of gaps. We know there are some places that we're going to wait and leverage sort of construction improvements that are pending in the next year or two and make sure that the data gets completely up to date as we make those changes. But from a digital twin perspective, we're really excited about where it can go. We know that there are a variety of event day reasons why having a real useful digital twin will be a benefit to how our folks can operate the building. We know that non-event day, just on a regular O&M basis, having access to a digital twin is just huge. I gave this example earlier, and again, it's kind of a silly one, but it's something everyone can relate to. Our goal is to have a situation like this. If we have an event day and a plumbing fixture fails, water's all over the place, and it's mid-game football game, or mid-game day. So the way that is dealt with today, there's a reporting structure that's great. If a fan goes out, talks to a security guard or usher or something and says, hey, I'm noticing this, reporting system is super efficient. Our people are fantastic at how they react to, respond to, and deal with issues because we got a great sort of notification process in place. But if the notification comes through and says restroom at section 114, water's flowing out the door, it takes someone going and looking at it, assessing the issue, figuring out what it is, figuring out what parts might need to be used to replace it or to fix it, maybe going back to a shop and coming back up and then fixing it. And that just takes time. Yep. Time that no one wants to deal with water flowing out of all over the floor during a football game.
More damage created every moment that you're waiting to figure it out.
Yeah. So our dream here and our plan is having that data accessible through a digital twin means a facilities manager coming up to that space would be able to access the plan, click into that restroom, verify that the toilet is XYZ brand and the flush valve is blah, blah, blah brand, and verify that they've got that stockpile in a nearby utility room. All that data being linked is the dream, and it is our goal, and we will get there. And so we're excited about being able to leverage the digital twin in that way. A lot of other ways, the ideas are endless, but putting yourself in the shoes of other operators, having access to that space, meaning digitally accessing the space, just means that they can be, again, so much more efficient in how they deal with stuff. They can tee up O&M work, or they can virtually show someone, or a space like this, if you're going to try to rent it out, to actually virtually show someone this space as you're starting to make your sales pitch. All those things that are totally out of my wheelhouse, but things that seem like it will be just a tremendous use of this twin.
The add-on benefits as you kind of go down the list continue to grow, but I'm incredibly impressed because this is a very complex facility, to say the least, and to have spent the energy and effort to get to a place where you've created this digital twin, that's no small feat by any means. And I'm also pleased to hear that you're sharing, like, this is a living, breathing document, because if you put it in a corner and don't ever do anything with it in 5 years, it's not particularly useful anymore. But the add-on benefits are great. And I'm starting to hear more and more from different owners that they're going down this path as well. And I'm hearing that requests tied to digital twins are showing up in RFPs more often, which as a former proposal manager makes me very happy, because I've received a lot of very poorly written RFPs in the past that I've had to respond to as well. And I think when owners are being really intentional about the end goal, like, what do you want to achieve? There's such a great relationship that you can create with your contractor. And especially with the digital twin, you don't have to go back and try to find 20-year-old documentation and bring it up to speed, especially if you're creating a new facility. Like, I'm glad you pointed that out. Like, it's possible. You don't have to create a digital twin for brand new buildings only. But if you can get ahead of it and start thinking about it at the early onset of design and construction, it's a heck of a lot easier to get there as well.
Yeah, no question. And it takes, in our specific circumstance, it takes, there are a bunch of people on the operations side who have been in this building for a long time. They've learned along the way, and as I said, they've gotten so good at managing this building. But it helps inform us because they can relate, the challenges that they have dealing with issues. And it helps us, again, we're on the front end of projects because that's our bread and butter, is managing construction projects and finding a way to get things done and changed and updated here in this building. But making our information useful for the folks after we're done, it's just become so clear. It's just a requirement. We can't operate in silos. They'll be struggling if we just continue to operate that way and don't, update information as we go. And we keep using that phrase of like kind of garbage in, garbage out. If we do it kind of, halfway right now, still, will be kicking ourselves because it won't pay off. So we need to get it really good and really right, and then keep it up going forward. And the payoff, it just seems so clear to me that there are so many different people who are going to be able to be that much more efficient and that much better at their job because they'll have access to all this information that much more easily.
Has it been your team specifically that's been pulling the documentation into creating this digital twin? And what was the level of effort involved in creating that too? I'd love to hear a bit more about that, especially, as I mentioned before, like existing facility, complex, like what was that process like?
Yeah, it started, I hate to put the old like around COVID kind of thing, but a lot of people use that as a timeline. But around that time frame where we had some work, we didn't work from home that long, but we were working remotely for a minute, and we realized how hard it was to get information. We got pretty heavy in the administrative side of things, like a lot of people did, when we couldn't be here on site doing things. And so looking at future projects and looking at plans and kind of continuing the project planning side of thing with consultants, we realized like, geez, it's not that easy to grab our plans and use it and share it. And that was an initial inspiration to try to start down the path of the digital twin. We also realized having sort of map-based data was pretty useful for a lot of our colleagues, people who are working outside of the walls of the building, parking people, security people, event managers, and operations people who are setting, imagine people who are setting bike fence to create the chutes before you walk in and scan your ticket when you're coming into a venue. Those people obviously know this place rather like the back of their hand, and they get really good at it, but it changes sometimes. Event over event, some of the security people might adjust the way that those chutes are going to be set up. And obviously, like I say, our people are awesome at it. They'll pivot with the best of them and just figure it out. But having access to those setups in a digital twin environment where you could say, I'm a security person. Oh, let's use it the way we did when the Revs played Inter Miami last game. Mm-hmm. How did we do that? Do you remember how we did it? Someone might say, yeah, we did a scan in the digital twin. You can reference that and hand it to someone who could see it from their phone or on a tablet as they're out there setting the bike fence. Like that. And I imagine just how much quicker that makes just a regular every day-to-day process like that becomes so much easier if we have access to that data. So, and as it relates to the other part of your question with having help, we've had a lot of help from some consultants. We've really got our regular go-to designers kind of get on board with how they're delivering the data to us. And it's been a process to get that sort of sorted out to make sure we know how we even want it so they can deliver it the way we want it. That's taken a few years. We've had a partner, Symmetry, who's guided us, as I say, as we were initially just talking about kind of having map-based access to data in GIS. And then they've carried us through this sort of Autodesk Forma and ACC process as well. They've been a good partner. They've taken on a lot of the sort of grunt work where they've been able to help us manage our own data. And that's been a huge help. But back to your other part of your question, a bunch of people on our side have had to just take time out of their busy days to sort through old file folders and reorganize and make it more accessible. And it's been years in the process.
But I think the payoff is quite apparent when you're able to sit down everything you've shared here. So I appreciate your kind of peeling back the layers of the onion there as far as how you've gotten here. When we first met, you had mentioned that you're excited about extended reality and virtual reality as well. I'd love to hear a bit more about how your team is using that technology and how it might or might not relate to the digital twin aspect as well.
Oh, it's going to relate. It's going to become, in my opinion, it's going to become hand in hand with how we think of projects. We spoke earlier about how people see or feel or experience 4 feet in a different way.
Yep.
Even when we have really wonderfully developed Revit models and we've created video fly-throughs on some of our larger scale projects to give people a good sense of depth and space and height, even throughout the process, some people just don't quite understand it. And I don't mean that in a that's not a dig or anything. It just doesn't, to your point, everyone's minds are programmed a little bit differently.
Yeah. If I have to try to figure out if furniture will fit in my house, I can't go stand and look at it and eyeball it because I will make a mistake. I've learned that the hard way. And having tools to help you kind of figure that out is incredibly important, especially for big picture decisions and not something in my living room.
Yes, so important. Even when we've got the best, high res models to allow folks to stand in sitting around a room, look on a screen and virtually navigate, a new space or a new project, or even when it's just a early concept review. It's just clear that not everyone gets it, and so the XR, having the headset as a way to put someone in the space, to me seems just like an obvious next step, because I was talking earlier about a project that we just completed, and there's this column in the middle of a room that folks maybe just didn't quite get how impactful it could be. And it was in a model, and it's something that we spoke about and we discussed. And it took getting into the building and realizing we may or may not rework it. We may try to make it less large. We try to scale it back a little bit in some way, shape, or form. But having the model visible through a headset, we could have been standing in that room as the structure was coming up, and even then would have been a little late. But we could have put ourselves in a position to maybe solve that issue way earlier, or frankly, before we even came up out of the ground, if we could have put someone kind of virtually into the space. I am super excited about how that will change the way we go from concept phase to early design phase to permit level drawing and ultimately construction, because it's clear to me that people will get so much more out of our conversations when we're describing what a space will look like if they can get into the space, so to speak.
Yeah, it just adds a really tangible aspect to everything that you're out building. And I'm encouraged at the progress that both the hardware and the software on that hardware has progressed in the last 5 years in particular, because I can look back to my first exposure with virtual reality when working at a GC. All we used it for was modeling some aspects of a proposal that we were working on to potentially sell something to an owner when we were in the interview stage, where we go, this is what your building is going to look like. And it was kind of a nice, fun, like, hey, let's go in the lobby of your building or something. It was more of a sales tool at that point than something that was real. And this hardware was heavy and not very great to use. And that's all changed now. And it's pretty exciting. So if anybody's out there, you're skeptical about VR, but you haven't put a headset on in the last 5 or 6 years, I really encourage you to, grab one the next time you're at a conference or, at a big department store, because it's changed pretty dramatically as far as what you can get for $300 or $500 too. It's a pretty exciting moment for that technology.
It's cool. The interesting sort of aspect of getting into that way, of operating that way, is you could tell the programmers, if that's the right phrase, have an eye on gaming, and the younger generation who has played video games. I played video games growing up too, but it's not like the way they do now. It's clear to me seeing, putting on a headset and seeing the way you can sort of interact with the little joysticks and sort of work your way around a building from a nerdy construction perspective is cool. But you could tell that they've got an eye on how some video games are being played, and that it'll speak to a younger generation, which is really exciting. Folks who are just coming into the working world now, I think we'll pick that up like a lot of other technology, where it's just that much more intuitive to a 20-something versus a 50-something age person. I think that part of this business, where from a design perspective, using that headset or even some other kind of immersive technology it'll just speak to them. It'll be so easy, where I could see people designing in that environment. Maybe people are already doing that, but it's pretty exciting to have that other extra tool as it relates to moving projects along.
Yeah, and I think the younger generation is, in particular, like, tools like that make construction more interesting and appealing for folks to come in and work as well. And I mean, we're obviously here speaking to an existing construction audience, but the more we can get that message out, where we go, hey, construction isn't just pounding nails and pouring concrete. Obviously, those are important parts of the job, but the technology that we get to use every day is pretty wide-ranging and pretty exciting, which tees up one of my last questions for you, actually. I'm interested to hear more about what tech in particular are you most fired up about in the next 2 to 3 years regarding the construction industry, and that could be hardware or software.
Yeah, I mean, right now for me, it's definitely software driven, and it's front of mind because we're navigating this process of getting, again, fully ingrained and using all the tools that are at our fingertips now. So we spoke just now a little bit, XR headset, using that from a design perspective is just super exciting. At a broader scale, having regular access to the model kind of from the beginning till the end, and knowing there are really user-friendly tools like within the ACC environment, being able to just point and click your way around a Revit model while you're in the software is amazing. You got someone who's never used Revit before that can zoom in and, with a little bit of practice, zoom in and out of a space, put yourself in a first-person perspective on a floor within a building, swoop around the outside of the building. None of that's, I say it that like I'm that wasn't that accessible to us, at least in our setup that long, not that long ago. So all the tools working together, it sounds sort of generic when I say it that way, sorry, but having all the tools really work together to help us guide the process from, again, early ideas about projects to final construction, and then turning it over to the operators so they've got a beautiful model to use to operate from as we turn a building over and open it for business. All that stuff is just, it's really exciting. And I wish I had more time to spend on it, frankly, because, I do it as a way to keep us moving forward. And I spend as much time as I can, but it's exciting about where the software seems to be going. And I'm excited that they're making it more accessible to everyone.
At the core, a lot of what you shared today, though, kind of comes back to more equitable access to both information and the model itself for everybody across the team. And I think that's one of the things that excites me a lot about where construction's at right now is just that easy access to information and knowledge. And there's no gatekeeping, whether it's siloed because of the nature of the tools you're using or because Bob in pre-construction doesn't like sharing information because he just doesn't. The ability to really take a close look is it's an exciting moment for construction. And every time I see those charts that say construction hasn't become more productive or embraced technology in years and years, I just shake my head because I don't think it could be further from the truth as far as where we're at. But I think your team is doing some really interesting and impressive things, and incredibly grateful to be hanging out here with you and such a beautiful space. I wish this was my office, to say the least, but alas, it is not. Well, I got one more final question for you, Woody. What is one tool that you use on every project, no matter what you're working on?
This is newer for me. This is the last maybe couple years, and I tie it back a bit to our digital twin effort. Is we've got a really wonderful three-dimensional mesh of our property, and as we go through the process of whether it's specific project planning or maybe it's parking folks talking about pre-game planning for their operations or a variety of different reasons, this three-dimensional mesh allows you to, like you're looking at a house in Google Maps kind of, right, or Google Earth. This mesh that we have of our property that we keep, the key thing is we keep it up. Yep. So it's up to date. The last scan that we did it with a drone, the last time we captured data was maybe 3 weeks ago or so. That is so useful as it relates to project planning, sure, visualizing, of course, but allowing people access to the data who are non-technical users is something, it comes up in a meeting almost once a day where we could be talking about strategizing how, I'll use my parking example, they might be trying to operationalize a parking lot and load cars in a different way. Right now, we can load up a three-dimensional image of that parking lot in a couple of clicks and have it on a screen in a conference room and actually visualize it and see it as it exists today. Yeah. It's such a great, useful, cool tool. I'm just so excited about having access to that information. And like I say, as long as we keep it up, it's going to be it'll continue to be a wonderful tool for everyone else too. Yeah,
I agree entirely. And to your point, the maintenance aspect of that is the most critical once you've created it, because so much work goes into making it. You've got to make sure that it is that living, breathing tool. But Woody, again, thank you so much for joining me here on Digital Builder and letting us hang out with you in this absolutely incredible space.
Cool. Appreciate it.
For everybody out there listening, of course, you've likely figured out that this is Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I know our audio listeners hate when I say, please go check out the video. But in this instance, you really should, because we're in a very special and absolutely beautiful location. If you're interested in reaching out and have any questions for me, of course, you can always find me on LinkedIn. I am the only Eric Thomas that works at Autodesk. If you enjoyed this conversation, and I did very much, please share it with your friends and take a moment to review us on whatever player that you happen to be listening or watching us on. It does actually do a lot for us on the back end. And until next time, goodbye.